Welcome back. I'm Rick and this is 65 by 65. This is going to be hike number 2, and this time I'm going to the Charles H. Bronson Wildlife Management Area in Christmas, Florida. So join me and let's see how this hike goes. Arriving at the Joshua Creek Trailhead parking lot, you're greeted with a couple of kiosks providing useful information about the forest and the trails. You can buy a day pass at the entrance on your phone using the QR code on the sign. But if you want to reserve one of the 3 primitive campsites, you need to go through the Reserve America website. I reserved Site 3, or Fern Camp. Each site can accommodate up to 6 people. I went with my hiking buddy Steve, and there was plenty of space to spread out. We pulled into the Joshua Creek Trailhead parking lot just after 4 p.m. Fern Camp is a 3-mile hike from the parking lot, and it took a little more than an hour to hike at a relaxed pace. We arrived at the campsite just as the sun was setting. Before it got dark, we quickly set up our tents and got a campfire going. The campsite has a large picnic table, a lantern post, and a fire ring. You're allowed to collect dead wood on the ground, but cutting down trees, dead or alive, is not permitted. You can carry in your own firewood, but fortunately someone left about a dozen large logs at the site, so we only needed to collect some small branches and kindling to get a good fire going. The weather was clear and cold, so the warm fire felt great. For this hike, I brought a Mountain House chicken and dumpling freeze-dried meal. It's packed with protein, and I have to say, it was pretty good. After dinner, Steve and I hung our bear bags from a tree a good distance from our tents, and then spent a few hours by the fire talking about camping, hiking, equipment, and life in general before turning in for the night. That night was so quiet you could hear distant critters moving across the leaf-covered ground. There was also a full moon that was so bright that when I woke up at 3 a.m., I thought someone was shining a flashlight toward my tent. Okay, so this would be a good time to talk about the equipment I added for this hike. The first, which I said I was going to do last time, was added a bear bag. This is the Tough Bison bear bag. It came with 2 sets of ropes with carabiners on each end. Came with a little rock bag that you can put rocks in to throw over the branch to start the hang process. And it even came with this little bell that you can attach to your bag, so when it's in the tree, if any critters during the night start messing with your bag, it'll supposedly give you a little ring and let you know so you can scare them off. I don't know if that would work, but I thought it was pretty cool. The whole thing was about 25 bucks. I was happy with it overall, but the bag itself is really thick and heavy, so I think I'm going to buy a different watertight bag for the actual hanging, but the rest of it, the rock bag, the ropes, the bell were great for 25 bucks, worth it anyway. The second item was this drinking tube. So this is designed to go into a typical water bottle, like a smart water bottle. It just attaches. You can put this in the back of your backpack, run the hose over your shoulder, and then it even comes with a little clip that you can put on the front of your backpack so that this magnetically attaches to that. So the issue I had with this, it hooked up well and it connected into the water bottle just fine, but because the water bottle is somewhat rigid, as soon as you start sucking water, you start creating a vacuum in the bottle itself, and that makes it really hard to continue to suck water as the bottle tries to compress and create a vacuum. The only way to relieve that is to let air back down the tube so that the bottle can release the vacuum, but then you have to suck water all the way back up to the tube again to be able to drink. So I don't think it worked like I hoped it would, but I have some ideas on how I can make this work. So I'm going to try that on my next hike, and I'll let you know how that goes. So that's a summary of the equipment I added for this hike. In the morning, I got the fire going and prepared my coffee and food. Breakfast was a Peak Refuel breakfast skillet. Again, this was surprisingly good. So 2 for 2 on meals for this trip. So I've got my Zen Bivy bed with the pillow in there. I put my backpack in the corner. I can hang my pump that has a light on it from the ceiling, and then I keep this carabiner on the upper zipper to hang my glasses and my headlight for if I have to get up in the middle of the night. And that's my setup. So another tip that my friend Steve gave me was that if you tie some bright orange ties to your stakes, it makes them much easier to find when you're trying to pack up. After eating, we packed up our equipment, put out the fire, and headed back to the parking lot. This trail was much more wooded than the last hike, and I found that made it much more enjoyable for me. Large sections of the trail are part of the Florida Trail and are easily identified by the orange flashes. At one point in the trail, there's a small bridge that crosses the Christmas Creek, and on one side there was, we think, one of the famous Eugene benches in the clearing. Maybe somebody watching this can comment below and let us know if this is true. Anyways, this was an ideal spot to take a rest break. As far as available water sources, Christmas Creek looked pretty good, and I would be comfortable filtering that water. There was another shallow creek along the trail, but it looked pretty slimy and I would not be so confident drinking that water through a filter. But I may be overly cautious. For this hike, we each carried about 3 liters of water, which was more than enough for our one-night stay. After a cool morning hike back to the parking lot, we loaded up the car and headed for home. Overall, I'd give this hike a good rating. I like hiking through forest. The shade is nice on hot days. The trees provide a bit of a windbreak when it's cold and breezy out. The scenery was nice. The trees were beautiful. Of course, this is Florida, so we don't have any epic vistas overlooking mountain ranges, but there were also no large water features, lakes, or rivers to cross. There were a few streams, which were nice. The campground itself was nicely equipped and well maintained, had plenty of flat ground to set up your tent, picnic table to eat at. So overall, that was really nice. It was far away from congestion and noise, which made for a really nice quiet night. The moonlit night was beautiful. That added a lot to this trip. So thanks for joining me, and hope to see you on the next hike.